What's going on, guys? Welcome back to Benchworks Garage. My name's Corey, and today I'm going to give you a little bit of an overview and an update on all of these projects that we have going on. So if you're new to the channel, my father and I recently purchased a large barn find collection. We are going through some of these vehicles. Some of them are going to be completed and sold as running driving cars. Some of them are going to be sold as parts vehicles. So first update, Cadillac. Last you guys saw this, the rear end was apart, or at least the brake assemblies, because we thought there was something binding up in the rear differential. Turns out that the rear brakes had been reassembled with the incorrect parts kit. That's back together, the correct parts are in there, that's done. We are still looking for the skirts for that car, but I have most of the trim now, some of the interior, so still looking for things. But the best news is that we just got this running just a few minutes ago. Granted, at this point it's only on starting fluid, but it is now running, and that's super exciting. We're working on getting some fuel in it. It looks like somebody at some point recently, or at least shortly before it was stored, had put a fuel filter in it, had put a new point and condenser in it. So we're gonna do some repairs back here. Matter of fact, I'll do what I can to try to show you guys what's going on. The gas fill tube comes down through here and connects to the gas tank, and the hose that connects the metal tube to the tank was just not installed. Looks like maybe the tank had been out at some point. The clamps were missing, the hose was no good, so we're gonna get that resolved. We're gonna get gas in this, we're gonna try to get it started. We got a big battery in here, we should be able to crank on that long enough to prime that fuel system, get it started. Next up, 79 Malibu wagon. This is actually not part of the collection. This is a car that my father and I had bought off the side of the road a couple of years ago. My intention at the time was to do a don't BS me clone style build, because I had enough parts lying around at the time, but then life happens, never got around to it. So now this is actually getting cleaned up, and it's going to be on sloppy classifieds, I don't know, probably later tonight. It's got a small block in it that seems to be entirely set up. There wasn't even spark plugs in it when I bought the car, but it is an AC car. And it cleaned up okay. It's a little scabby underneath, but it's just the right amount of ugly, if you know what I mean. So that's pretty cool. And the other cool thing about that is you can get a control arm kit to convert those over to like a Crown Vic Ford 8.8 rear. So you'll have limited slip, rear disc, all of that, and it's really quite simple to do. So that's the cool bit about that car. Now, update on the Savoy. It's back from paint, looks incredible. We've already started on the paint correction back here on the trunk, and as you can see, it's coming out extremely well. So we still got a couple more days left on doing paint correction on this, and then at that point we're going to be working on the brake system and also some general tune-up, touch-up, that sort of stuff in the engine compartment. And then, of course, putting on those licensed reproduction front bumpers. So, onto the tractor. The tractor is mostly done. It's usable now. We got a new starter in it. We got the hydrostatic pump sorted out. Somebody had put a roll pin in one of the shift mechanisms, and it sheared the roll pin, but it was still inside the arm. So you couldn't tell until you'd pulled it apart. There's a few more things I need to do on this, but for the time being, it is running, it is usable. I'm really happy that we'll be able to use that to round up the engines out at the property. Newport, waiting on a Wind 4-barrel intake for that. I scored a really nice used one that had already been media blasted on eBay. Still looking for the carb that I want at this time. But this has a 383 in it, but it had the 2-barrel intake and carb on it, and there's just no legs up top. And given how heavy this car is and the fact that at least in this instance with this car, being 100% original is not terribly important. So we are going to swap out that intake and carb just to make it run a bit better. However, the interior is now done with all of the preliminary detailing. All the seats are clean, front and rear. Carpet's out. We've got a carpet kit on the way. The floors have got just a little bit of surface rust, but they're all super solid. So really happy with the way that is going at the moment. Camaro still for sale. A buddy of mine, John, had been marketing that for me because he collects them. He knows much more about those 70 through 73 than I do. He currently has it listed for $8,500, their best offer. I certainly have some room to work on that, and I also believe that I have found the front and rear glass, and so that should be essentially complete. Now again, if you haven't looked at my video about this car specifically, feel free to take a look at that. I took some video underneath before I offloaded it from the trailer to give you some idea what the condition is down below. This car has not run in many years, so I'm selling it as is, where is. It's possible that the engine in it can, you know, get a little Marvel Mystery Oil treatment, turn it over, and maybe you know, it's salvageable and you could make it run with a little tune-up, much like some of these other cars. It's also possible that it's junk. I don't know, and I intend to make somebody the right price based upon that information. So if you haven't checked out that video yet, please do. And while you're at it, if you haven't already, please consider subscribing to the channel. I would really appreciate it. This is the 68 Roadrunner that we had been missing. This was at a gentleman's shop about 15 minutes from the main property, and we had gotten a lead saying that there was some vehicles over there potentially, and sure enough, 68 Roadrunner was there, and an Impala that we'll get to in just a moment. GTX, we have not got this car started yet. The starter's out of it, or actually the solenoid that throws out the fork for the starter is actually out of it. Unfortunately, somebody had put, I assume Fred, somebody had put these terrible aftermarket headers in there. You can't get the starter out with the headers still in the car. So we're going to get those headers out of there, get a starter in it, and then get the original 440 manifolds to go in that car when we put that together. But that is currently scheduled for paint. I'm just trying to get it running enough that it can be moved around the inside of American Muscle, you know, just as a courtesy to them, of course. Now, the gentleman who did the 68 Roadrunner here and the Impala we're going to get to in just a moment actually built the 389 that's in this GTO, assured us that everything in there was good to go. It's never been fired. So at some point here, we're going to have to get a carb on that, get a battery in there. The wiring harness for the engine compartment is in the trunk, but we should be able to run some lines, some battery cables, wire up a few things, and get this car started and moving under its own power. Next up, the 34 Plymouth. We got this cleaned. This was really quite grimy, but it is clean now. And this is a car that we're probably going to end up marketing as is. We are not quite there yet. We're still working on a little bit of the history and whatnot, doing our research before we get it listed. But it's my understanding that the 34 is particularly desirable because of that little bit of a chin underneath the grille surround. And that's really popular with hot rodders, and it's also a low production Business 6 coupe. So even guys that are interested in it for the sake of restoring are going to be interested in that as well. So now on to Impala. We've got a big block convertible over here. Unfortunately, this did end up being the 325 horsepower, if I recall correct, 396. We were really hoping that it was going to be a 427 car. It wasn't, but that being said, it's got good bones. It certainly still needs some body work. absolutely interior work and so on, but it's a big block stick convertible Impala. Like, this is going to be a car that somebody's going to want to restore, and I'd love to see that happen with this car instead of being cut up and used as parts. But ultimately, if somebody purchases it, they can do with it whatever they'd like. Last up here is the 62 Wildcat. This is the car that we got on Sunday. This is the car that is in one of the garages at a rental property, along with the Chrysler 300L. It's a 65 big block 4-speed car. It's one of 98 made, the 300L that is, 65 being the last year of the letter cars. This is a 62 Wildcat with the 401 nailhead engine, which is highly desirable, being the first year of the Wildcat and also having the best optioned trim and performance engine at that time. This car definitely needs some detailing, as you guys can see. However, the car is all here, and it's my impression from what I've been told that this car drove into the garage where we just retrieved it from. So as you can see, there's a couple of spots in the paint that are going to need a little bit of touch up, a good detailing, get rid of those terrible wheels, some mechanical, some interior, but that car is, near as we can tell so far, all there. So we're really hoping that that's going to be another car that we can spend, you know, a couple of days on, get it running, get it detailed up, and sell it just the way that it is now. So anywho, guys, that's the update. Thank you so much for watching. If you haven't already, please consider subscribing. This has been a lot of fun for both my father and I appreciate all of you watching. Thank you very much, and have a great day.